Okay, so when we're thinking about the current state of education, I really want to introduce to you the idea of where education actually came from. And not a lot of people know this. It was during the Middle Ages when education was first kind of invented, like the system, the class was first invented. And the purpose of the class was really to educate the servants, the serfs, on how to do farming. And so essentially it was to increase the productivity of serfs, of servants. If you really think about the past, the nobles really got their children educated with one-on-one mentors, or tutors, as we say. Now, eventually this process kind of evolved into modern education where we've got a teacher in front of 30 students, teaching them the subjects and knowledge that they needed to become a functioning member of society. Now, back then, before the age of the internet, this knowledge was actually important because you would have to apply the knowledge in whatever you did. You couldn't just go on Google and search for the answer. But as kind of time progressed, we now live in an age where we can find the answers to most questions online. And so now there's this shift in education from trying to teach our kids knowledge to trying to teach our kids skills. Now, the unfortunate thing about that is when you're trying to teach somebody a skill, every student is at a different level, and teachers are actually stuck in the sense that we've been trained to teach content. We've been trained to stand and deliver, so to say. We don't know a lot of the things about sales or a lot of things about marketing, about business, unless we've actually done it. And the unfortunate thing is a lot of teachers, they learn about how to teach effectively, but there really isn't any substance behind the stuff that they teach. At least that's from my experience. And I've kind of been a victim of that as well, as somebody that teaches accounting, but I've never really truly invested myself. Like, I don't have a decade of work experience in accounting. I can't tell you what working at an accounting firm is like, what the career progression is like. I don't have the experience to back myself up, and so I could only kind of be there and teach you what I've learned in the books, which at the end of the day is a very, I think, ineffective way to do things. And so I think that's one of the problems in our education system today is the idea that ideas are being taught, not practicality. And so there's now then a shift then, because teachers are kind of stuck teaching certain levels of content. There's then a shift from, okay, how do we, instead of just teaching the content, how do we teach the content and try to incorporate some of these skills into teaching content? So some of the critical thinking, creativity, communication, emotional intelligence, teamwork, leadership. How do we incorporate all of these skills in the classroom? And so now there's this rise of projects, the rise of group assignments, of presentations, of interdisciplinary learning, inquiry-based learnings, reflections, and all of these different sorts of alternative assessments that are alternative to the traditional standardized testing that we're also familiar with, that teachers are familiar with and comfortable with, because in a sense they're the easiest to tell. In a sense, they are known by the teacher. The teacher has a certain level of certainty when they're looking at a test to see whether the questions are right or not, whether the student has answered correctly or not. But if all of a sudden we go into a project-based learning environment where we tell students to start a business, all of a sudden teachers are also thrown into a world of uncertainty, which should be embraced by many teachers, but unfortunately that fear keeps many teachers from actually going into that arena, because we're now at a place where we have no idea what's going to happen or what's going to come out with this, and we don't even know how to assess it because we've never seen it done before. We don't have a certain set of criteria. It's really just like, are you successful or not? How do we do a A, B, C, D, E kind of thing? And so therein lies another issue, is that in real life, for me, I teach business classes, but really in real life you can't really give an A, B, C, or D. In business, it's just like, did you make the sale or did you not, right? Like, did you prepare the financial statement properly or did you not, right? Like, did you do marketing properly? Did you get the attention of the customer or did you not, right? There isn't really like, oh, you kind of did it, but you didn't get the result that you wanted, and so I'll give you a B, right? Like, that doesn't make sense, because in real life, you fail, right? Like, you didn't get the results, so you failed, and so it's very difficult to reconcile. I'm not even talking about tests. It's really difficult to reconcile the idea of producing results in a real workplace environment and replicating those same results in a school environment, because the evaluative process is different, if you know what I mean. So we've got a first problem, which teachers were trained as the givers of content, the facilitators of students learning new knowledge, as opposed to skills that even teachers don't have experiences of. And we have now the second problem where it's very difficult to assess in a way that reflects how the real world works. And if I had to point out a third problem, it'd be the idea that we're really focused on the knowledge. We're really focused on these skills, whether it's critical thinking, communication, or writing, and we're much less focused on the soft skills of developing self-awareness, of emotional intelligence and stability, of mental health, of emotional wellness, spiritual health. I think those areas, at the end of the day, at least for me in my own life, has been what has helped me understand myself more and help me figure out what I want to do with my life, right? Like, my purpose in life, my passion in life was not figured out in school. School didn't really help me figure it. If anything, school helped me figure out what I didn't want to do. But really, I had to dig within myself and try a lot of different things before I kind of figured out what I didn't like, what I did like, and build that emotional resilience to even, I guess, make videos like these and put myself out there, and all of those things. I would have very much preferred a more directed instruction when I myself was in school, and something I'm trying to do with my students as well. I give them more opportunities to present. I give them more opportunities to reflect, and research has actually shown that reflection is the number one or number two way, that feedback is the number one or number two way that students actually learn, whether it's feedback that are given to them by somebody who has actually done it before, which very few teachers in business have actually had businesses before, so that makes things a little difficult. And then self-feedback, self-reflection, which teachers call assessment as learning, just like to coin a term for it. And so I think we're now at a stage in education where we need to realize that parents and students and teachers and administrators, well, pretty much everybody, we need to realize that education is number one. Education is very, very important, but there are fundamental flaws in schooling, and these flaws have been around for a very, very long time. And unfortunately, reality is finally catching up to make those flaws stand out more and more. For example, it's kind of common knowledge that if you want to be an entrepreneur, that school is not the best place for you to learn how to be an entrepreneur. But instead, school is more of a place if you really want to learn the specialized knowledge that you need to, I don't know, become a lawyer, become a doctor. School is in my mind, is supposed to provide this safe environment where students are able to try things again and again and fail again and again and again. But unfortunately, the emphasis on marks and going to university and the overweighting of the impact of university on your life, which is totally kind of overweight. It's not actually true. Like, university doesn't have as much of an impact on your life as you think it does. That overweighting by the education system on university, on schooling, the branding has kind of created the perception in parents and students that, oh my gosh, university is important, marks matter, we cannot fail, where failure is the learning process. That's the reality. And so I think we're now moving to a stage in the system, in our state, where people are starting to recognize that. People are starting to recognize that maybe college isn't the only way. And one thing that I would recommend to parents, and again, this is coming from a teacher's perspective, is if you have the resources, take your kid out of school for like a year, travel with them, work with them, right? Build something with them, create something with them, and then put them back in school, or not, or get a homeschool teacher, or homeschool them yourself. I think having that option and trying things out will give you a really different perspective, and will give you a different way to listen to your kids. Because if you're with them for the 6 hours one-on-one, you'll hear things from your kids that maybe they gravitate towards a certain area, that you now be able to develop them in that area. So that's kind of what my thoughts are on the current state of education. Some of its problems, right, with the knowledge and experience of their teachers. They're focused on giving out content as opposed to developing skills that maybe even the teachers themselves haven't applied their whole lives to the struggles of the system itself, to the branding of the universities, and the overweighting that society has on the importance of schooling, the dissonance between education and schools and their own agendas and purposes, and how the reality is finally catching up to the education system. And so I think going forward in the next kind of 10, 20, 30 years, coming from a teacher, the education system is going to need to change big time, because if the world melts and the brands of the major universities fall, that's going to hit universities real hard and the education system real hard, and it's going to force the change that's needed. And I think that might be a good thing.